What up, everyone? And welcome to the first episode of the new best Raptors show on the market. Talk to Influent.
6 degrees. I shouldn't yell. 6 degrees. It's early in the morning for 6 degrees north. You know that's mathematically or geographically incorrect.
6 degrees north. I'd imagine.
I got to put it out there right off the bat. 6 degrees because we the 6. But let's be honest. Toronto is 62 degrees latitude. So let's just get that out of the way for all the smart people who are going to hit us up in the chat and be like, 6 degrees is like Ecuador, homie. Yeah, I know. We're 62 degrees, but doesn't sound as good of a name. So 6 degrees north. That's the show. All Raptors all the time. We might talk a little bit about the rest of the NBA. But we're talking about the Raptors. What's happening now? What's happening in the future? What happened in the past? Where do you want to start? I hate this, by the way. I don't know if you know this. If I do this, I get a thumbs down, like when I don't want it, and a thumbs up. If I do this, I get like balloons. Have you ever seen me do this? I'm like, I'll be counting out. Yeah. It doesn't do it when I want to do it, but like only when you'll see like halfway through the show, I'll be like, you know who they should retire? They should retire this person and this person, and then like I'll get balloons. It's always at the worst time. But that being said, you want to start in the past, the present, or the future?
Hey, it's going order. Let's start in the past.
Let's start in the past. All right. In the past. So what are the things we want to talk about? What ifs, which is always fun because the Raptors have made a lot of mistakes. So I want to start with your favorite, Ital Pastazone, Andrea Bargnani.
Oof.
That was a bad, listen, that wasn't a strong draft.
That's very true.
It wasn't a strong draft, but a lot of people said LaMarcus Aldridge paired up with Bosch would have been better than the Italian Stallion. What do you think?
I think that Bargnani pick was also heavily influenced by, the rise and kind of Dirk Nowitzki and him kind of really showing out in the league, doing his thing, because the whole 7-footer could shoot, European. He fit the mold. So the next Dirk Nowitzki to pair up with a guy like Bosch, it definitely made sense. But obviously, looking back, didn't quite work out. But you did mention that's one of the worst drafts of the 2000s. If you go look back on that list, I mean, other than Aldridge in that top 10, it's not a pretty draft. A lot of bad picks were made.
Do you want me to read it through the top 10?
Read that top 10.
Andrea Bargnani goes 1. Mm-hmm. I think, by the way, wasn't Colangelo also the G at that time? Yes, so there's an Italian thing there. Mm-hmm. Andrea Bargnani 1, LaMarcus Aldridge 2, Adam Morrison 3, Tyrese Thomas 4, Sheldon Williams 5, Brandon Roy. He actually should have been the number one talent-wise. Unfortunately, injuries kept him. Randy Foye at 7. Rudy Gay might be another one that could have.
We end up getting him too. We end up getting him too.
We didn't get good until we traded him, but yes, we did. Patrick O'Brien. A lot of people always ask me, who's a guy that got drafted that you like thought was going to be good and then never was? That's him for me. It was Patrick O'Brien, who went to the Warriors. Mohamed Sane, and then like, no offense to JJ Redick, but when JJ Redick's going 11, and I know he balled out. In college, but
that's my guy. Duke's my team. So I was a big JJ Redick guy.
Okay, so yeah, right. Duke. He went to Orlando. Hilton Armstrong. I'm going 15 deep. Thabo Cephalosha, Ronnie Brewer, and Cedric Simmons. Like, this is not a good. I'm even Rajon Rondo went at 21, but no one knew he was going to be that good. Kyle Lowry at 24. Like, this is not. I keep going down the list. This was a pretty draft anyway. So okay. So the what if question is this though. So what if they had drafted LaMarcus Aldridge and had like a 2 power forward versus, which now is actually very common. That's actually very common. So they went 2 power forwards instead of a power forward and a center, I guess, or one of them plays the center. Although I think Aldridge ended up playing center anyways. Better, worse, the same?
I think we definitely be better with a guy like Aldridge and Bosch. Maybe would have started the whole kind of, play smaller, stretch 5 thing a little earlier in the league. We definitely could have been at the forefront of that movement. But I think, again, having a guy like Aldridge there going to give you 20 and 10, every night. Having a Bosch is going to give you essentially 20 and 10 every night. I think defensively, those two could do their thing inside. If you just put the right piece around them, I definitely think, especially in the Eastern Conference at that time, which was a little wide open. So that's when like the LeBron Cavs were still good. The Orlando Magic before Boston got their big three. We might have snuck in an Eastern Conference Finals or so, because that East during that time wasn't Detroit Pistons.
You don't think it stunts? You don't think it stunts Bosch's development at all? You think it's because Bosch was only 22 at the time, and I'll just read you through. So you had Chris Bosch, Anthony Parker, T.J. Ford. I love this guy, by the way, Jorge Garbajosa, Juan Dixon, and then Bargnani. So Bargnani would slide in. Marcus would drive it. Fred LaMarcus would slide in for Bargnani there. Fred Jones, Morris Peterson, Jose Calderon, Rasho Nesterovic. You know what? You might be right.
At that time, yeah. I'm trying to think of the teams that were really solid in the East at the time. Like I said, the Pistons were on the downturn by that point. They weren't the Pistons of old. The Magic, I think Dwight was just got drafted, or how many years was Dwight in the league at that time when
Dwight was on his ascend, but
he wasn't there yet.
Yeah, he wasn't. They don't make the final till 09. But just so you know, 06, 07, do you know who won the Atlantic Division that year?
06, 07 won the Atlantic. Did we? No, we didn't win one, did we? Did we? Yeah. Oh, we did sneak one in. I guess we did sneak one in. How many wins we had that year?
47 and 35. We won the Atlantic. Yeah. Sam Mitchell, coach. And then it's the next year where they dropped to 41 and 41. But, Bosch misses 15 games, which probably helped or hurt, I guess, a little bit too. So it's interesting. So that's the first what if. So I think that was the easy one. That one's the easy one. Here's the one that I really want to talk about. Drafted a kid out of high school. He gets here. He finds out that our star player is his cousin. But then he bolts for Orlando because he wants to be the guy. He misses home. He wants to go back to Florida. But what if Tracy McGrady decided, you know what? I'm going to re-sign one. I think Tracy McGrady was part of the reason they went from 3 to 5 years, by the way, on those rookie deals. But what if he had said, you know, it's my cousin, I want to give it a go. And Tracy McGrady stays in Toronto and develops, right? Because we know the second he goes to Orlando, he takes that next step. But I think that would have happened either way. So now you have that team, but it's Vince Carter, Tracy McGrady, Charles Oakley, Chris Childs, like that team, but with now an improved Tracy McGrady. What happens with that team?
Without a doubt, in my mind, in my heart, I think we easily make back-to-back finals. I think the East at that time was, again, wide open. You had the year we lost to the Sixers, I think we beat the Allen Iverson Sixers team if we have Tracy McGrady. I think Vince Carter and Tracy McGrady together, again, it's almost like a Jordan Pippen thing. Obviously, none of them are as good as Jordan, but you could definitely make a case that they're better than Pippen. I think Tracy McGrady could do all the. It'd be Jordan Pippen, but in the reverse of Pippen's skill set being better with Tracy, while Vince would be the leading scorer, but Tracy would be the better player. I think that's how it would have turned out. And those two together.
I think you mean like Jordan in the sense that Vince Carter would be the scorer.
Yeah, exactly.
Tracy would play the Pippen role where he does a little bit of everything.
Yep.
You know that at that time, they were trying to trade in 98. They were trying to trade Pippen for Tracy McGrady. The Bulls were trying to make that trade.
Oof. Look, if that trade went down too, Jordan might have played a few more years because that window.
No, he's the one that said no. He wanted to.
Oh, he's the one that said no. Hey, Jordan, he could have. Tracy with Jordan.
He likes his people.
Fair enough.
But so the year that Tracy leaves, it's still the same team. It's Carter, Oakley, Antonio Davis, Mark Jackson, Alvin Williams, Morris Peterson. Like I said, Chris Childs. I mentioned the other guys, and that team was good. Like you said, they make the playoffs. They beat the Knicks in the first round. They lose to the Sixers in 7. You know, that shot after Vince goes and to his graduation, which he should have, by the way. I think you're right. And you know why I think you're right? Because the smartest basketball mind I know is Kobe Bryant. And do you know what he said about when Tracy left to Orlando?
I think he said the Raptors would have been a problem. I remember seeing that interview.
In a Slam magazine interview, he said, if Tracy stays with Vince in Toronto, it's Lakers and Raptors in the finals almost every year. And you know him. He's not throwing out compliments just for nothing. So that's how serious that tandem would have been. What do you think they could have coexisted, though?
I mean, obviously, like you mentioned, Tracy definitely left. Because he wanted his own thing. Obviously, they were both young. They did mention after, Tracy mentioned after, I think it was on the jump where he said if he can go back, he would have stayed. I think that tends to happen when you get older, realizing that. Now, at the time, again, when you have two guys in their early 20s, they're really pushed. People forget at that time, Vince was really being pushed as the face of the league.
Yeah.
Like he got more All-Star votes than Jordan. Like he was the leading All-Star vote getter. So they were really pushing him. So I could see Tracy be like, you know what? This is Vince's team. He's pushed the base of the league. He wants his own situation. I get that. But man, maybe if one of the vets could have talked to him or something, it would have worked out. Like, yeah, you had Oakley on the team. Maybe he's the guy that could have sat there and really talked to them. Maybe even get another vet, but that team. And again, I understand Shaq was great, but having a guy like Antonio Davis and Oakley there, I'm not saying they're going to stop Shaq, but they're the type of bruisers who are really going to make Shaq work. So we really could have tried to shock the world to even steal one of those championships. I would not be shocked.
Listen, I think, look, after Shaq and Kobe, right, with all due respect to the Lakers, after Shaq and Kobe, we're talking about the third best players like Rick Fox. Like, it's not Derek Fisher. Like, it's not, there's a significant drop off. Yep. And so if Tracy McGrady, who Kobe again admitted was the toughest matchup he had, right, between him and Vince, I think they do a good enough job. We know what the Celtics did, or what the Pistons did. You could mess with Kobe a little bit in the finals. And you're right, Antonio Davis, and Charles Oakley, those 12 fouls. All right, some other guys probably just look, he's going to get his. He's Shaq. Okay. But I don't think you're wrong. I think there's one, if not two, because we're the first super team, I guess, although they're drafted, so not, but where you have two legitimate top 10, top 5 players in the league if they both develop the way they are. And I really think Vince plays better, because what happened when Tracy left, like to your point, he becomes the face of the league, the face of the Raptors. Well, where's all the attention go from the defense? It goes to Vince. Yep. But now if you got to spread that out between Vince and Tracy, well, now it's a nightmare matchup every single day. And then what they did, like you said, a lot of veteran guys around them, Chris Childs, Charles Oakley, that's a team that I agree with Kobe, makes it to the NBA Finals. And I think you're right. I think they take at least one. And I think they know it too. Both of them never won a championship, and I think they both knew that they blew it.
Speaking, think about it. It hurts. It would have been it really changed the dynamic of the NBA and their legacy and careers, because Shaq and Kobe might not have three-peated, and that's a big thing with them, right? That takes away from them. And then Vince Carter, Tracy McGrady, I think them winning not even that. So after the Lakers and them broke up, I mean, there was a window they could have made. The Raptors had a window if they stayed together up until easily. Let's say the Celtics 2008. So from 2000 and let's say 1 or 2001 to 2008, I mean, it would have been them and the Pistons. It would have been them, Pistons, the young LeBron, but I don't think that team's getting past the Tracy and Vince. And that Pistons team with the Tracy and Vince there, I don't know if they get past them. So that's really,
it changes so many legacies. You're right, because if the Lakers don't three-peat, it's different. It's not bad. It's not bad. Do the Pistons with their 5, stars, no superstar, do they get by them? Well, I don't know. If I'm throwing like we said, Davis, Oakley, Carter, McGrady, Childs, Williams, whoever, at Billups, Rasheed, Ben Wallace still probably the X factor, but Ben Wallace, Rip Hamilton, it's a series. So maybe the Pistons don't win their one. Maybe LeBron doesn't go to that final in 07, because let's be honest, that Cavs team they were really good defensively, right? Top 5 defensively, but come on. So that changes his whole thing, because now it's like, well, he doesn't have that carrying that nobody team to the finals. Does Dwight Howard make the finals? Does Dwight Howard make that finals? Right? Like, it changes the whole dynamic of everything. Again, assuming they stay healthy, blah, blah, all that other stuff, right? And then Toronto becomes a destination. People want to come in there, right?
It becomes known a lot earlier before Drake comes along.
But not just known. Like, if you're a shooter or a big, you don't want to go play with Vince and Tracy, who are probably the two faces of the league.
you're right. They start winning championships with their game and how exciting they were. They really will be pushed at the face of the league. You're right about that.
Listen, Toronto's a great city, right? Everybody who comes here says this is my Shaq to this day. It's my favorite. It's my favorite city to come play. It's my favorite city to come visit, right? They love it here. And if you have two guys that are committed, listen. You saw what happened with even the next generation of players once they, DeMar DeRozan didn't want to leave, right?
True.
Maybe Vince at that time thinks the way he thinks now. They asked him if when you go into the Hall of Fame, what jersey are you wearing? And he's like, Toronto. And they're like, before they could even finish answering the question, they're like, no, but Toronto, it's Toronto.
Rightfully so. Yep.
Right. And rightfully so. Rightfully so. So I want to jump to retirement then. We're going to go from the past to the future. We'll do the present in a second. We are one of only two franchises. Do you know the two? The two franchises that don't have any numbers retired.
I'm trying to think. So it's us
Raptors
and
Yep.
Another franchise with not a lot. I mean, I know OKC retired. I know that. Is Charlotte?
Nope. Charlotte's got
one. Portland's got one, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Damn, I'm trying to think of the Clippers.
The Clippers is the correct answer.
Okay, there it is. Clippers.
The Clippers is the answer. So the Clippers and the Raptors are the only two teams that haven't retired a number. Now, I don't know if you know this about me. I don't believe in retiring numbers.
I've definitely heard you say that before. Yep. Whether it's on Fluid and Show the panel, I've heard you make that statement a few times.
Everywhere.
Everywhere. Let it know.
I don't like it. So that being said, let's still talk about Raptors retired numbers. If you are, so let me ask you first: are you a fan of retiring numbers?
Absolutely. I like the concept. I like the concept of remembering great players. Having tribute to them and putting their number away so no one else wears it again. I do like it, and I like statues too for the real special ones too.
You like statues too? Okay, so you're gonna love Kobe's gonna get 3 in LA.
Hey, deservedly so. What he did, I'm not mad at him getting 3 statues.
Okay, so let me give you my reason why I don't like retiring numbers. Mm-hmm. I don't like retiring numbers because you get situations like Boston and LA that have like 25 retired numbers, and there's only
Yankees in baseball.
There's only 99. 101. If you go 0, 00, there's 100, 101 to choose from, and 25% of those numbers are gone. And there's other ways of honoring them. Like, I am a big fan. I'm not a Dallas Cowboys fan, but I love how the Dallas Cowboys have the Ring of Honor, and they honor their players with their number. And when a player gets a certain number, it's like a badge of honor. Like Michael Irvin was 88. When they give Des Bryant 88, oh, you got to watch this guy. Then it goes to CeeDee Lamb. Oh, yeah, you got to watch this guy. And they've been right on every single one of those, right? All 3 of those guys are great receivers. So I like the idea of honoring them with the Ring of Honor, but keeping that number there. And then it keeps from the issue we're having in Denver, where Carmelo's 15. Now Jokic is 15. And they're not retiring 15 for Carmelo.
That's Jokic's. It's Jokic's. Yeah, I've always said that's Jokic's. Shout out Melo. I got love for you, Melo. But you're not Jokic. He brought up a championship. What he's going to be all time. That's Jokic. And
I say no, shout out Melo. I don't like you. I think you're completely overrated. And so good for Jokic, but it eliminates that where there might be some pettiness. So let's go to the Raptors retired. Who they would retire. So here's the problem. If you do retire a number, I feel like it's got to be a special player for your franchise. So I guess I'll ask you the question. Who's the greatest skill-wise, talent-wise? Who's the best player to ever play on the Raptors?
Skill-wise, talent-wise, the best player to ever. Ooh, I'm gonna go with Kawhi and Vince are close. Okay, like Kawhi and Vince are really close. People say I'm gonna edge it to Kawhi obviously for the season, but Vince Carter to me is the greatest Raptor. But skill, talent-wise, I'm gonna go Kawhi.
That's not what I asked.
Ask me that again.
Who's the only one to bring home a championship as the greatest player on the team?
Kawhi, but what Vince did was worth more than a
Hold on, we'll get to Vince.
Okay, I got you.
So Kawhi Leonard is the best player offensively and defensively that the team's ever had. He's the only one who was the number 1 on a championship team, but he was only here for 1 year. How do you retire a number for a guy that's only been there for 1 year? Although it meant a lot. How do you retire the number 2? So you don't. Okay.
No.
Kyle Lowry, beloved beloved Toronto Raptor. Already said, I'm coming back. I'm signing a 1 day, 10 day, whatever, and I'm retiring a Raptor when it's my time to go. By the way, Kyle, I love you. It's your time to go. Okay. So do you retire number 7?
Oh man, to me that's 50-50. Like that retirement is kind of like it's not the Udonis Haslam retirement, but it's also not a Dirk Nowitzki retirement. It falls in the middle. A good player, made
No,
a few All-Star games.
Dirk
No,
deserves.
I'm talking Kyle Lowry's
Oh,
in the middle. So he's not at the
oh,
level of Dirk, and he's not the Udonis Haslam
okay.
type.
Oh,
He's right
okay,
in the
okay.
middle. You know what I mean? Yeah. So he made a couple All-Star games. I'm not sure. Did he make an All Pro, an All NBA team? No All NBA. So just I think four or five All Stars. Yeah, 4 or 5 All Stars. Good player. And the chip, big part of the chip. 50-50. I'd probably lean yes, but he would not be the first guy to retire. But he could retire his jersey.
What about DeMar DeRozan?
DeRozan is he still the Raptors all-time leading point?
He is.
Guy? He is. He's still that.
Points, games. He still leads in like 4 or 5 different categories.
He still leads in 4 or 5 different categories. He spent close to a decade here.
Mm-hmm. He was the first superstar, whatever you want to call, to re-sign and stay.
Yeah,
stay with them.
He was definitely an era-defining player for the Raptors. When you think of DeRozan, you think about an era. I'm cool with that. I'm cool with getting him retired too. Yep.
All right. Damon Stoudemire, first draft pick.
Yeah.
You retire his number as
well? Not enough. No, Damon Stoudemire, not enough. The quality of play, I don't think deserved that one.
All right. So let's go to the last one now. So now what about Vince? So Vince comes into the league, takes the league by storm. Mm-hmm. There's the whole Carter Effect movie and reality in Canada where people who didn't even watch basketball become basketball fans because of Vince. The Raptors become on the NBA map because of Vince. But it ends really, really poorly. It ends really, really poor. We've had a lot of number 15s, including my guy that I mentioned, Jorge Garbajosa, wear the number 15 after him. Do they retire Vince's number?
Not only do they retire Vince's number first, I'm giving Vince a statue. I still don't think people understand Vince's impact. Let me tell you my personal story of that, right? All right. I think what people have to understand, though, in Toronto, especially Canada at the time, I think the 80s and 70s was a time of mass immigration in Canada. It was a time when Canada was letting in a lot of immigrants coming to the country, right? 70s, 80s, they're coming in. So people from all over the world, multiple different countries, right? Whether it's India, Sri Lanka, China, Russia, Sweden, Italy, Norway, whatever. Countries from all over, they're coming here, right? 70s, 80s, they're coming here. And then what we had was the first generation Canadians, such as myself, where my parents immigrated here. And then we were the first people who were born here, right? So that born 90s, mid-90s. Yeah, exactly. There it is, right? So we're coming in there. I just remember, you
the 90s for that, but
yeah, we're after. Yeah, I hear you. So remember, I'm in school. First day was kindergarten, grade 1, grade 2. We're there. You just see so many people from all walks of life, and you're just kind of used to when you first immigrate. You're kind of used to being around your family more so, and then you go to this class. You're like, oh, so many people from so many different countries, so many different cultures, languages, foods. We're there. So it's like we didn't have a lot of common at the time. We're still young, getting to know each other. But the one thing that everyone kind of came around was Vince Carter. And this was a time when it was still a hockey town, still a hockey country. But Vince Carter, for whatever reason, especially for that immigration population, basketball was a sport. It was the sport that everyone really fell in love with. And I still remember that the day after the dunk contest. That dunk contest, right? Go to school. We're there.
And everyone's
2000, right? So I was 6 at the time. So I was probably grade 1.
I don't want to know that. Don't share.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, so we're there. And it's just like everybody, no matter what different, everyone was just talking about that. Vince Carter was the guy. He was the person. So when you just see kind of people from so many different walks of life kind of come together and all just kind of fall in love with one person and really kind of brings, it wasn't just a class, like the school was talking about. I remember gym class, they just put up a mini net. Everyone's just dunking. That's literally what we did all gym class. Everyone is just dunking right after. So to me, what he did for a country, in that moment for the people, to me, that's worth more than people win championships. But how many people really have an opportunity to, like you said, introduce a sport to a country, but not only that, kind of bring people together in a sense of, again, at the time of mass immigration, bring something where kind of everyone united with and can root for together. You know what I mean? So to me, the Vince effect, that to me That's worth more. That's worth more than 3 champions. Like I said, there's gonna be players who win multiple champions. We're gonna see that over the course of the next 50 years. There's gonna be players. We might get a superstar, a Wemby type, who's gonna lead us to multiple championships. But there'll only be one person ever to introduce a sport to a country and did what he did.
So your thing is not necessarily what he did on the court, although that's important, but the effect that he had on the people in the country.
To me, it's statue worthy. Yeah, and on the court, I have my gripes with Vince. Like I'm with that. I'm with the Gilbert and Rangers train of thought of he had all the skills to be in the GOAT conversation. He had all the skills and talent. And to me, I've always wondered if I ever get a conversation with, I would literally ask him, if you put in the work the second half of his career to keep his body in shape, do the things he needs to do to play when he's 35, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. If he did that when he was 22, 3, 4, 5, I wonder how it would change. Because the one thing with Vince that I never heard stories about, what Kobe heard in the gym, working this, all the stories with Vince was he could not stretch. He could just walk on the court and be magic. I never heard about Vince's work ethic when we're watching play. That wasn't the thing with Vince. Well, we never heard about that. It was always just he's one of the most talented guys we know. He's on the court, does his thing. So, I mean, yeah, that's my thing with Vince.
So I'm going to pause for a second and go back to the retiring of his numbers, because you may, I'll be honest, you may have swayed me. From an athletic perspective, was he as athletic as Michael Jordan?
Yes.
From a shooting perspective, would you say he was as good of a shooter as Michael Jordan?
I think he's a better shooter. He was shooting 40% from threes, five attempts a game in 2001 in the season when he averaged 27. Before threes were cool. His shooting stroke was amazing.
From a defensive standpoint, I'm not talking about effort. I'm talking about skill set, footwork. Could he have? Is there anything that Michael Jordan could do defensively from a skill perspective that he couldn't do?
No, there's nothing Michael Jordan did that he couldn't do.
Okay. Well, what about Kobe? Same 3 questions.
I think Vince Carter was more talented and skilled than Kobe at that time.
And more athletic, because the one thing people don't realize about Kobe, go take a look at like his vertical and all that stuff. It's not very good. 100%. He outworked you on and off the court, right? Before and after games. Like he outworked you, but he wasn't the guy that was just like, God came down and said, you can do everything, right? Like he had to work.
He wasn't elite athletically by NBA standards. Obviously a good athlete. Still good in NBA standards, but he wasn't in the upper echelon. Yeah,
exactly. Whereas Vince was. So the only things missing were that work ethic, that effort, right? That stopped him. And I think that's what drives some people crazy is that, when you have all those physical gifts, you're right. He should have been. Now, you have to win. You have to have a team around you to win. There's those other things. And let's not downplay all the stuff going on in Toronto, right? Part of the reason Tracy left, issues with coaches, ownership, like that was all, it was very tumultuous here at that time. So let's not put all the blame on the players. So I'm with you. I think he probably should have been in that conversation. So back to his retirement. I would have said 100 times over no to all of the people you said. And no offense to Kyle Lowry, but Kyle Lowry isn't an NBA superstar. And so I start there. Like that's the bare minimum. That's why the Udonis Haslem thing drives me nuts.
Nick Collison when he got his.
Nick Collison drives me nuts. Yeah. Rudy Tomjanovich as a player in Houston, nuts.
I got you.
However, you start as a superstar. Were you a superstar in a league? Yes or no? If the answer is no, you're already out. So it's yes. Okay. Then it's okay. How long were you with this franchise? There has to be a minimum. Back in Orlando, honestly, he only played for 4 years.
Very short.
I know what he meant, but he only played for like Dwight Howard played longer and did the same thing. Took him to an NBA final and lost. So I'm assuming he's next to get retired. But so, are you a superstar? How long did you kind of? How long were you with the franchise? What did you do for the franchise? There isn't anyone in the history of the Raptors that fits those 3 criteria. The only thing that why I said you might have swayed me is the effect he had on basketball in the country. So for that reason, you know what? I wouldn't mind seeing that statue where, the one where he goes between the legs and he's looking at the rim. Like that would, I think, would be
amazing.
That would be the statue. Yeah. So that would be the only reason I would retire his number. Because he didn't. If it was just based on what he did on the court, it's not enough.
I understand that, and you're consistent. I mean, your logic is consistent because you have the same kind of opinion on the Hall of Fame. Too many people are getting it. So you just want to kind of set the bar relatively high to reserve it for the greats. So I get it. I definitely
Well,
get it. I'm not mad
the
at
Hall of
that.
Fame's tougher. The Hall of Fame is tougher for me because it's the Basketball Hall of Fame. It's not the NBA Hall of Fame.
College matters, international.
Yeah, technically, what you did in high school matters for that. It's the Basketball Hall of Fame. Like
JJ Redick might get in. His Duke career was pretty. His Duke career was pretty iconic. JJ Redick really might get in.
Duke's your favorite team? Is that?
Yeah, I'm a Duke guy. But I'm saying JJ Redick was really him at Duke. I'm telling you.
No one that went to Duke ever amounted to anything in the NBA.
Coach K's the GOAT. He was doing all that with guys that weren't. I mean, after that 92, obviously with Grant Hill and Shane Battier, he had an era. I mean, you know the Duke thing. The Duke thing was Coach K recruits quote unquote white college players who won't be NBA guys. That was his reputation for a while, and then it kind of changed after he got the Jaleel Okafor. Then he embraced the one and done. But he was the last kind of coach to really keep getting these 3-4 year guys. Oh, you hate the one and done. I mean,
I hate the one and done.
I get it. Like I kind of go back and forth, especially now. I kind of go back and forth with it.
If you're one and done, you should just go straight to the NBA from high school.
Oh, from high school, gotcha.
If you're that good, just go, because you're either good enough to go, right? You're either Kobe, Kevin Garnett, LeBron James, right? Who can just go, Moses Malone, you just go straight into the NBA, or you're not. And if you're not, that 1 year does nothing but ruin you, right? Because if you're not that person who can go straight into the NBA, you need 2, maybe 3 years to learn basketball, right? That's the problem with basketball today. No one learns how to play the game. That's why the fundamentals are gone. That's why the footwork sucks. That's why it's all, based on athleticism over skill and talent.
Would you do a 2-year minimum? Would you do a 2-year minimum?
I would go 2-year minimum, yeah.
I'm not mad at that, actually like that.
But 2-year minimum, or like that's if you go in. You cannot go in. Like you can have a portal to go straight from high school to the pros, right? And it should be, if you don't get drafted in the first round, then you're eligible to go. And you don't have to go to college. You can go play in Australia, play in Europe, play in the G League, play in, whatever. Not everybody, college just isn't for everybody.
I don't think high school students should be allowed. I'm not in the high school students train should be allowed in the NBA. Because I remember there was a time for every, again, even like Kevin Garnett wasn't ready for the NBA. He still took a couple years to develop.
Sure.
I think Kobe would, in today's era, probably would have played right away. Obviously, it was a different era where he didn't. But even for every great player like the LeBron James, they're still
went to a team that was good and they had Eddie Jones.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, also guy. Yeah. There was guys like Darius Miles, I think, who came into the league right out of high school. Obviously, everyone knows Kwame Brown's situation. Sebastian Telfair. There's a couple guys who I just think it almost in some ways, there was an era where a lot of these high school kids came in some ways almost kind of ruined the NBA product for a little bit. I just thought they came in too raw, weren't that skilled, and just didn't work out. So I like the concept of being either maybe just 2 years out of high school. I think like even for NFL, it's like 3 years out of high school, right?
There's listen, with actual jobs, some jobs require you to have a bachelor's degree, a master's degree. To be a doctor, you have to have a PhD, right? Like, why would an NBA? You're an automatic millionaire. You can't say there's an educational minimum.
100%. I'm with it. 100%.
I'm with that, but yeah. So I was saying, so that's the high school, straight from high school. Like I said, I don't like the one and done thing because I think they go to school not to go to school. They go to school because they have to go for that 1 year.
Yeah, they're not really doing the classes. They got people.
Exactly. All right, so let's back on track. So you've convinced me, Vince Carter, but no one else. Is there anyone else that you want to make a case for?
Man, I mean, I guess Chris Bosh has a case. I'm okay with your standard though. Like I'm okay with your standard, but the whole Chris Bosh thing, it's like he was there again. The Chris Bosh era was a thing. The Chris Bosh era when we had some playoff success when we.
No, they didn't have any playoff success. With
Chris Bosh. The playoffs. I guess they made the playoffs. Yeah, I guess. Did Chris Bosh win a series?
Did they make? No, they definitely didn't win the series. I don't think they made the playoffs.
No, with Chris Bosh, yes, they definitely made the playoffs a couple times with Chris Bosh.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm pretty sure it was a couple times with Chris Bosh. Yeah.
When did Chris Bosh was what? 05, 06 draft?
03 draft, the LeBron draft. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, yeah, right. We should have got Dwayne Wade.
Yeah. We lost the first round twice, but yeah, he went twice with Bosch. I would have been something too, getting Dwayne Wade. Okay, yeah, maybe Bosch looking at numbers. Say it again. What if? Oh, Dwayne Wade?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, look, Dwayne Wade was in the discussion for the best player in the league during his peak. It was him, LeBron, Kobe, Dwight was in there too. Dwayne Wade in Toronto, man, during that time.
Okay, his rookie year, they were 33 and 49, no playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Year 2, 33 and 49, no playoffs. Year 3, 27 and 55, no playoffs. Year 4, 47 and 35. They win the Atlantic Division. They lose to the Nets in 6, the New Jersey Nets back in those days. Next year they're 41 and 41, lose to Orlando in 5. They make the playoffs. And then in 08-09, 33 and 49, no playoffs. And then obviously and then 40 and 42, again, no playoffs. The Jay Triano experiment, and then he bolts for Miami. So 2 years out of 2 playoffs.
You're probably right. He's not a retirement. You're right. He's not a retirement. You know what? I think Vince is the only guy. Looking back at like the standard, Lowry, no. Kawhi doesn't have the longevity for it. Then probably if there's no Bosch, I'm probably not doing DeRozan either. Because I think they're kind of similar. DeRozan, I think, just stayed a couple years longer. Because Bosch stayed for 7.
So what about you do the statue, you do the Vince Carter retirement, and you do a DeRozan, Kyle Lowry at different times, Chris Bosh, who else? I'd actually do even Damon Stoudemire, only for he was their first round. Like put them on the Ring of Honor, like around the stadium.
Ring of Honor.
Yeah, well, you're not retiring their number. You're just honoring what they meant to the franchise. Like Damon Stoudemire, we know how he left. It was bad again, but it was like, hey, he was the first draft pick ever. Put him up there. Chris Bosh, right? Because you bring him back, you do like a ceremony. Like it's good stuff. It's good PR stuff.
I like the Ring of Honor idea. I mean, the Ring of Honor. Orlando did that too before they retired Shaq. Didn't they have or Suns? Does the Suns who do that too?
Suns have a Ring of Honor. Yeah,
Suns have a Ring of Honor. I'm not mad at that. Like you said, the number thing. I know Manchester United in soccer. If everyone knows, the number 7 is iconic. Beckham, Cristiano Ronaldo, and they give the 7 to the guy. So obviously, if we have great players, a number allocate to that, you get a great draft pick, you give it to them. So I get that concept. But yeah, maybe the Ring of Honor is the way. I think you've convinced me of that. Give Carter the statue, or probably the statue, and then the Ring of Honor.
The statue and the number.
The number, yeah.
And the number, yeah.
Number, okay. Statue, number, and the Ring of Honor.
Like I'm okay with the Clippers coming into town, or after he retires, putting the number 2 as, hey, our star player for our one and only championship. There isn't another one coming. I don't think there's another one coming soon.
Not soon, but hopefully, maybe next 20 years.
I guarantee you, not guarantee you, I would put money on the Raptors winning another NBA title before the Leafs win a Stanley Cup.
Oh, the way Austin Matthews playing this year, he might single-handedly take the Leafs to the Cup. His goal numbers are like Wayne Gretzky in the 80s-esque right now. His goal numbers, but I hear you. The Leafs.
Are you taking that bet?
Am I taking? Oh man, I probably agree with you. The Leafs are somewhat cursed a little bit. I agree with you. They really are.
Yeah, I throw it out there, and everyone wants to argue, but they'll never take the bet.
I know, because we know with the Leafs. Yeah, so true.
So I want to go back to we weren't going to talk about Hall of Fame, but let's talk about Hall of Fame. So my criteria is very high.
Yeah.
I think only the best of the best, the elite of the elite. Again, if there was an NBA Hall of Fame, but since we have the Basketball Hall of Fame, Tracy McGrady's in. Vince Carter is not. Is it wrong that Tracy's in, or is it wrong that Vince isn't in?
I mean, based on the criteria and standard, it's wrong that Vince isn't in. He'll get there. Like, he's going to get in. It's just Vince Carter, again, what he did.
Now you got to go broader. You can't just what he did for Canada. Now you got
exactly. For the league, for the league.
Really do for the NBA.
So I think Vince, he was still one of the premier 2 guards for a generation. For kind of that decade, you could say the best 2 guards in the league were Kobe from 2000 to 2010. If we're ranking 2 guards, Kobe, D Wade, Vince. I mean, Tracy, if you want, Tracy small forward, but if you want to say shooting guard, if Allen Iverson, he could be point guard, shooting guard, but I think it's Vince. He's right in that conversation with guys like Paul Pierce. Again, Tracy, Paul Pierce, Allen Iverson.
So you think it's fair to put in the third or fourth, fifth best player at the position for their time?
For their time. It was also, he was behind an all-time great in Kobe. So, I mean, it was kind of like, the second greatest of all time. And then he's behind, like I said, D Wade, who I think is a surefire first ballot. He's behind two sure first ballot Hall of Famers, like without a doubt. Vince didn't have the playoff success, but in the regular season, being a 25-point guy for a few years, being one of the better scorers in the league for a few years. His time at the top wasn't as long as I think people remember. His peak was definitely shorter, but then also having the longevity of playing 22 most years in the NBA, he has that, right? Vince Carter playing the most years in the NBA ever. Yeah. I think that probably matters. The 8 All-Star teams, I think that
matter. Does that matter? Because we never say Kevin Willis should be in the Hall of Fame, and he played for 21 years.
I don't think it should matter, but I think I've seen people use All-Star games when they say this guy, when they put him in the Hall of Fame, they mention the All-Star game appearances.
All right. Well, he only in 22 years he only made 8 of them.
Yeah, that's the second half of his career. He really took a back
fan voting, and that's fan voting.
That is
right. So let me ask you. So for me, criteria like, has he won a championship?
No.
Was he the best player on a championship contending team for multiple years? There's the balloon. See, I told you.
No.
Was he significantly did he make a lot of All NBA teams?
He only made 2, I think, right?
2.
Yeah, only made 2, and never a first team.
So in 22 years, he was only All NBA twice.
Yep.
All defensive team, no. Scoring leader, no. Assist leader, no. Did he lead any category ever? No. So you're telling me you played 22 years in the league, you made 2 All NBA appearances, you never made the finals, you never won a championship, you never won an MVP, you never even sniffed an MVP. How are you a Hall of Famer? If you take his name away, if you take the name away, just from that, how are you a Hall of Famer?
You make a lot of good points there. You make a lot of good points. But if we look at players who are in the Hall of Fame.
No, don't use.
Okay, no, so don't do that. Okay, so don't do that.
Because then you can just say, well, Bill Bradley's in, so everyone who's ever played in the NBA should be in, right? Like you can't. That's why I don't like Bill Bradley being in.
Yeah.
I don't. Let's be clear. For those of you who are about to attack me and say I'm a hater, I don't even think Bill Walton should be in the Hall of Fame.
I mean, because that injury, I hear you. The longevity thing. He
played 6 full seasons.
Yeah.
And we have him top 75. I don't think he's top 75 either. So that's my issues. Now with Vince, you could say he had some success at North Carolina. But if I just said to you again, of course you got to look at peak and all the other things. But if I said to you, there was a player, all right, I'm just going to talk statistics for a minute. 16, 4, and 3. So 16 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists a game, was All NBA twice. That's it. That's his accolades.
I mean, the 16 though is it is a little misleading because
in his 22 years. Hold on. In his 22 years, he only was even in the playoffs half of that time. 11 years. Of that time, he was only he was always a starter. But I would say he was only the best player on his team for 5 of those years.
This might be one of the harder takes. I think he was the best player in the league after he got traded to New Jersey. For that half of the season, he was the best player in the league without a doubt. He was the best player in the NBA.
So you think in 2004, 2005, 2006, and 2007, he was better than LeBron, he was better than Kobe, he was better than Dirk, he was better than all of those guys?
I would say no. So I for sure that half of the season when he got traded right away. So right away, that half of the season he played with New Jersey after he got traded that first how many games it was. How many games first time with New Jersey? 57 games. 57 games. He was the best player in the league. And that next season, I think I would argue he was definitely top 10 in the league. I think he was a top 10 player in the league.
So in 04-05 when he got traded, would it surprise you that he was 13th in MVP voting behind Steve Nash,
Shaq, Yep.
Dirk,
Yep.
Tim Duncan, Allen Iverson, LeBron, Tracy McGrady, Dwayne Wade, Amari Stoudemire, Ray Allen, Kevin Garnett, and Gilbert Arenas.
I understand that because when he was with the Raptors, we understand he really kind of gave up. He was averaging, 10, 12 points a game, something really low. But once he got to New Jersey, I'm telling you, he was the best player in the league. Scoring went up, the efficiency, he was doing everything.
In year 2 with the Nets, he's not even in the top 10 in MVP voting, behind Nash, LeBron, Nowitzki, Kobe, Billups, Dwayne Wade, Elton Brand, Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, Allen Iverson, Sean Marion.
Here we go. See, Tony Parker, Chauncey Billups, Elton Brand were not better than Vince Carter that year. They were not better at basketball than Vince Carter. Ain't no way.
But I don't. The names I'm mentioning, the third year in Jersey, because then once he goes to Orlando, it's over, right?
Yeah, it's over.
So in his third year, so his third peak year, because the first few names, I don't think he's better than Dirk, Nash, Kobe, Duncan, LeBron, Tracy, Chris Bosh. Then okay, Gilbert Arenas, Carlos Boozer, fine.
I think he's better than Bosh.
Fine, I'm okay with that. But so does that now sound like a Hall of Fame guy?
Man, how many? He had 8 seasons averaging over 20 points in one of the slowest eras in NBA history. I mean, it was from 2000.
Well,
that was the defensive era. Slow defensive era.
The slow thing is interesting because it was the slowest era up until 03-04 when they abolished the hand checking. There's an 8-point jump when they abolish hand checking, and then it just goes up after that every single year. So it was really those first 3 years of the 2000s. Yes, I'm with you.
Okay. Which was, I think, his best years, frankly, his peak years. His third year was his peak year.
All right, let me give you another guy. Just I'm going to pick some random guys. Hall of Fame or not. 19, 5, and 4 are the stats. Scoring champ twice.
Okay.
7 All-NBA selections.
Yep.
Played 16 years in the season. 16 seasons in the NBA.
That's Tracy.
That is Tracy.
Yeah, Tracy. Yeah, that's Tracy. Those
Never
7 All-NBAs.
Out of the first round of the playoffs.
I mean, those Orlando teams, he was carrying those boys. I'm not mad at him for not winning a series with him. And with Houston, the injury situation, him and Yao never being healthy. I'll say this, Tracy and Vince, it's one of those guys you had to see them play. You talk about this too. There's some players you had to see them play too, where I don't think the statistics or accolades necessarily match who they were. I think with Vince, that really holds true. Like when you watched him play, you understood you were watching greatness. I really think that we understand, like, again, that from like 2001, 2002, 2003 seasons, you're telling me between the conversations between Kobe Bryant, Paul Pierce, Allen Iverson, Vince Carter was right there. If not, we were saying he was better than those boys.
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. I'm playing devil's advocate.
Gotcha.
Like you said, I think both of those guys, based on who's in the Hall of Fame, should be in the Hall of Fame. I'm glad you brought that up because I keep making that point. Some guys you just got to watch play and what their impact is, because it doesn't always show up on the score sheet, what their impact was on the game. Vince Carter, to the point earlier, right? Man, what he meant to a country. That alone probably gets him in. It's just, I always get thrown numbers back when I talk about players, and I'm like, all right, well, here, let me throw numbers back at you, because you can make, like, when I was giving you Vince's stuff, you're like, oh man, right. You start to go like, there's more to it. So we got about 10 minutes left. I want to talk about the current state of the Raptors. So the current state of the Raptors. So obviously they're rebuilding. Scotty Barnes is now going to be their guy. They traded away OG. They traded away Pascal. You got a very young core with IQ, RJ Barrett, obviously Scotty Barnes, and then you've got like Bruce Brown and some others. But what do you see from this team?
Well, I don't see, again, a team.
Let's start this season. We'll go long term in a second. This season, is this a team that can, now with Trae Young being hurt, is this a team that could sneak into the play-in? Do you want them to sneak into the play-in?
They can sneak into the play-in. Again, do I want them to? No, I prefer the better draft pick of them not making the play-in. But if they sneak into the play-in, You could say maybe it's just a good experience for guys like Scotty Barnes and quickly maybe kind of trying to lead a team to a win in the playoffs. Maybe be a good experience for them. But I'd probably prefer them not to sneak in.
So just so you know, if they don't make the play-in,
Mhm.
they keep this year's draft pick, and then next year's goes to San Antonio.
That's fully unprotected.
But if they make the play-in, this year's pick in a very weak draft goes to the Spurs, and they get their own pick next year.
And next year's a stronger draft for
And
sure.
next year's a much stronger draft.
Yeah.
Does that sway your opinion at all?
I understand next year being a stronger draft, but I don't think the Raptors will be kind of in a top. They definitely won't be a top 5 pick, maybe not even the top 8. They might be picking in like the 10 to 15 range because I don't think they'll be so bad that they. So I don't know exactly what type of a great player they. Even in a strong draft, the 10th to 15th pick between this year's draft and next year's draft, I don't know if it's a huge gap. At the top, there's a huge gap between next year's and this year, the top 5 picks versus next year's top 5 picks. But the 10 to 15 range, I'm not too sure.
Okay. So are you of the mentality, because you said something that I'd rather they don't make it, and I'm of the opposite thinking. I'd rather they make it because I want to create a culture of winning. Because I keep telling people the reason Philly doesn't go anywhere is because they had the whole tanking, trust the process, and I think it created a culture of accepting loss.
Mm.
And I think that's not a culture you want to start because it's really, really hard to change that culture. So I'd rather them win, make it in as the 10th seed, and hey, if they lose to whoever's the 9 seed, or maybe sneak one in and beat them, and then lose to whoever eventually becomes the 8 seed. Heck, maybe they win 2 games and they make the 8 seed, and okay, they get swept by Boston. No problem. I think playing in the playoffs is better than not playing in the playoffs. You don't share that mindset? Why not?
I mean, again, it was a draft pick thing. It was definitely a draft pick. I mean, I do value, just a draft pick. Yeah, get a better draft pick or try to get a better draft pick. I mean, going into the play-in and losing, like I get it. It's definitely the culture of winning is there, but I mean, how much is the culture of winning just making the play-in and then losing right away?
Is it better than not making the play?
Shoot, that's the question. I mean, is making it knowing you're not going to win a series or win it all? How much do we value that in terms of culture of winning? Right. Should we be if a winning culture? I mean, if it's a true winning culture, should we be celebrating first round wins? Like the winning franchises, whether it's the Celtics, Lakers, the Warriors for the past decade. I mean, they're not celebrating first round wins. Like it's cool, you did what you're supposed to do, win the first round, right? So,
all right. So who do you like? I'm assuming you like Scotty Barnes. With the exception of Barnes, who do you like on the roster? What is it that, like, did you like the trades that they made? Did you not, maybe, I don't know, maybe you don't. Did you not like what happened I guess before the deadline?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think they did the best they could based on the situation with expiring contracts. I love Quickly. Quickly's a guy I really like. I think he's going to be definitely a future piece of the Raptors. Great defense. Like his defense is a lot better than I thought I was just watching him briefly before he got to the Raptors. But I love his defense. Offensively, he's definitely not as consistent. But when he's on, he can get you 20 a night. But there'll be nights, he shoots 4 for 12. But the thing is, even the nights he shoots 4 for 12, he can give it to you by hustling for boards, the defense. And I like that. When players have bad shooting nights but can still contribute to the team's, pursuit of winning games, I really like that. So give me Quickly, I really like. RJ Barrett, I'm never a fan of. He's another Duke guy. Even at Duke, RJ Barrett's one of those guys who to me thinks he's a lot better than he really is. At Duke, he thought he was better than Zion Williamson. We understand who Zion was at Duke. RJ Barrett is a shot chucker, doesn't play a lot of defense. I understand he's Canadian. I wish him the best, but I don't think he's a future piece of any winning franchise or title winning team. So he could go for me.
Hold on. Did he really think he was better than Zion?
I'm telling you, he thought he was better than Zion. He was taking all the shots at the end of the game. Zion was just there. Everyone's like, get Zion the ball. Nope. RJ Barrett really thought he was the number one on that team. That's RJ Barrett's mindset.
I feel like he's doing that now too. Like I see him at end of games trying to take shots, and I find that interesting. The last thing, because we're running out of time, I have an issue with coach. Okay. Listen, they've been winning some games. I like what they've been doing lately. Like I said, I've said on some other shows, I think they're going to go on a run. I think they are going to get that 10th seed. What happened with like one of my favorite energy guys? What happened to Chris Boucher?
I mean, he's just a bunch of DMPs, right? I mean, he's just not playing.
He just fell off just out of nowhere.
Do you think it's a practice thing or maybe something with the coach?
I don't know. I guess my question is, I'd like to see more of him.
I mean, Chris Boucher, again, maybe a fine hustle guy, energy guy. Do I think he's going to play more than 15 minutes and he started winning team? No, I think he's fine, but I mean, I just don't think he's that important of a player where if he gets DMP, I'm cool with it. I don't think he's a many franchise cornerstone or sixth man of the year type. No, I think he's an eighth man off the bench at best.
Eighth man, so he's like the 13th guy on the roster.
Yeah. I mean, I just don't think he's that. Like defensively, he was getting destroyed a ton. Offensively, he's had some big games, but he's almost like Bobby Portis, but worse. Like Bobby Portis is good, but like a lot worse than Bobby Portis.
I would take Bobby Portis.
Yeah, but like worse than Bobby Portis by a good amount.
Good.
Yeah, I mean, if you become Bobby Portis, that'd be great. But
all right, predictions for this upcoming game. Got Raptors, Mavs.
Raptors, Mavericks. Hey, Luka Doncic is on his pursuit for his MVP. He's trying to take that throne of best player in the world from Jokic. I mean, I think the Raptors lose to the Mavs.
All right, I got the Raptors winning. And if they need some shooting, they can sign me to a 10-day. I'll be available. Any final shots? First episode in future, because I know you guys are watching right now. In future, this will be live, and we're gonna get you guys to join us and come talk some Raptors hoops. But first episode in the books. I'm gonna let you have the final word.
The final word. Vince Carter, Toronto. It's time to give this man his jersey retirement. Give him a statue. He is the man in Toronto. Help introduce sport to a country. We talked about it. I just think it's time. I think he clearly loves Toronto too. We've seen it time and time again. Him talking. He's going to retire. I mean, he's going into the Hall of Fame with the Raptors jersey when it happens. You know, I think he loves the Raptors organization. He loves the city. Let's treat him right. Let bygones be bygones. Apologies were made. Let's get Vince Carter that statue and that jersey retirement.
I can't believe I'm going to say this. I agree. Let's get him a statue. Let's retire his number. Let's do it as part of the Hall of Fame induction, maybe even. Just tie it all in together. We're 6 degrees north. Until next week.